I can put up a mask and it's really beautiful and perfect, and it might be something that I think that you like and want. So if there's a mask, then you're appreciating my mask. It's like almost this third entity. So all of my praise, all of our relationships, all of our conversations are going towards this other part of me. And inside, the authentic true me is actually getting more and more lonely. Like, do you even know me? And do I even know you? And that's like, what a lonely place to be. I don't even realize that I've been holding my mask for such a long time until I actually set it down. And only in the setting down of it is the weight actually felt.
Boom! What is up, guys? Tom Winning back here again with another one of these videos. Today, I'm joined by Lisa, who is an authenticity coach. We're going to talk about all things authenticity, self-expression, emotional control, all this stuff. Really excited for this conversation to flow. So Lisa, jump in, introduce yourself to everyone.
Hi, Tom. I'm so excited to be here. I'm an authenticity coach, and I am super passionate about helping people have more authentic, deeper, connected relationships. There's nothing that I love more than really diving into topics about how to get into spaces with other human beings that you love so dearly and really revealing who you truly are, being seen, appreciated, understood, resolving conflict, having more fun, playing in this world, feeling your feelings. It's such a rich part of being human. So it's a deep honor and privilege to be able to guide people, to support people through their relationship obstacles and delights.
I love it. So how would you summarize authenticity? Like, what does that mean to you, and what does that look like in practice?
It's a rich question. I think that the main thing is about it being very present moment focused. So as long as you can attune to what's true for you, the most accessible thing that is there in that moment, whether that's the truth of your thoughts, the truth of your emotions, the truth of your sensations, this is the doorway, right? This is how we can be authentic and share and start to not only be with ourselves, so that might be some authenticity and revealing with ourselves, but then the excitement can also happen when we share that with others. So I would say present moment experience of what you're experiencing in that moment.
Yeah, absolutely. Presence is like so important, right? To come back to yourself, to come back to what your truth is, your authenticity, and to show up in that way around other people creates a more meaningful and deeper connection in those relationships, like you were talking about. So maybe we could touch on that. Like, what have you seen the impact to be when you show up authentically in these relationships? How has that been for you? And maybe you can give some examples of some relationships you've shown up authentically, and maybe there's been times where you've been judged or there's been fear come up for you, and like, how have you faced some of these things in these relationships? Because I know some people can shy away from showing up authentically because of these fears that come up. So maybe you could talk to that a little bit.
Yeah, I think for me, it has been a journey of caring so much about the people that I love and wanting to make sure that they're happy and everyone's happy around me. I want to see, connection and joy in the world. So I would a lot of times sacrifice myself or sacrifice what I wanted in order to keep the peace, keep harmony, be really like a chill, cool girl, and not rock the boat. So that was kind of my strategy for surviving in many situations. And I would say I was thinking kind of about some of the important milestones in my journey and when it became important to speak up, for example, about my dreams. And one of those moments where I had to risk disappointing my husband and risk, that's disappointing many people, but this was a big one. There was about 7 years ago, we were in New Haven, Connecticut. And at that time, my husband was on his tenure track to being a professor at Yale University. And for anyone in academia, this is kind of like the Mount Everest of your career, to be able to have this kind of security to be able to impact people on this level. But my dream was to live in Bali. And I had this vision of being a yoga teacher and really living a completely different lifestyle. So it was a big moment for us to really, or I would say a big moment for me to let him in on this dream of mine, especially when that started to become a reality, when that really, the doors opened. And anyway, that's a whole other story, but it was a tough moment where I had to choose my dreams and also bring him into the experience of, okay, how are we going to move forward with this together? And I can't say that I did a great job of it. And that's part of like why I'm here today. But I do see how important it is to really share all of who we are, and so we can live the most full lives that we possibly can.
Absolutely. And it's like, yeah, it can be so hard to like share your needs sometime, and I think there's power in doing that. It's like stepping into the fear and facing it, and the only way that we can be courageous is when we experience this fear and then we face it and take the actions anyway. And so I think for a lot of people, it's about taking that risk, because what's the worst case scenario, play it out in your head. And then if things do go that way, like just make a little bit of a plan and then you're good. And it doesn't have to be as stressful or as heavy as people make it out to be. And a lot of the times, if you're in these partnerships, in these relationships, husband-wife relationships or girlfriend-boyfriend, it's like a lot of the time, if you're in these relationships, you want a partner who can fully see you and you can be fully expressed in your authentic expression. And so I think it's so powerful to be able to share your goals, your dreams, your visions. And so for you, was it like planting the seed, or did you go like all in, like, hey, this is my vision, like this is what I want to do? Like, what did that kind of conversation look like for you?
Yeah, at that time, I kind of stumbled through it and I was like, no one's going to take this away from me. Like, this really needs to happen. And I was sort of this like anxious, like, I'm just going to say it because it's so important to me. And looking back, I mean, that wasn't very kind and compassionate and gentle. And while he was on board, and we did have a lot of conversations, and ultimately we both moved to Bali, and it changed the course of our lives. And it was an amazing move for both of us and both of our careers. There are easier ways to have some of those big conversations that are so life-changing, and especially when you're committed to somebody who you want to spend your life with. Like, there are ways we can communicate that make this a little bit more easier to understand where he was coming from a little bit more. And yeah, so we have very different conversations now than we did a few years ago. Yeah.
Absolutely. What do you think has changed?
I'm less needing to be right. Is probably, I'll take ownership of that. I had so much desire for him to be seen, to be understood, which is, everyone wants that, but I didn't understand that in order for conversations to flow and not get stuck, that at least one of us needed to pause on, like, I needed to pause on some of my feelings being seen and met to actually listen to him, because I was completely unwilling to listen. I was so focused on my needs, my feelings. I need you to respond to me in a certain way. And I wasn't showing up in the ways that I wanted him to show up for me. So I would say for myself, that's the biggest shift that has happened, is I started to listen. I started to show up as the communicator that I wanted him to be. And the beautiful thing is that immediately he followed suit. He started doing the exact same things, and it became a very rich, we just had much more rich and interesting conversations that felt nourishing and healing. And that was a big, big game changer for me.
Wow, that's powerful. Yeah, I think it's like, it all comes down to awareness, right? It's like realizing and understanding the dynamics in the relationship. Like, what are you leaning more to, like being a giver or a receiver? And like, which side are you like more leaning towards? And how can you balance things out to where you're listening more to your partner? Or maybe you're listening too much and not expressing your own needs. And so it's like, this awareness is so important. And so like, yeah, I guess, what have you found to be like the big breakthrough for people in terms of gaining this awareness and this understanding? Is it mostly just learning about how these dynamics are working and then becoming aware from there? Or is it more about like starting to have some of these deeper communications with their partner and going from there? What's advice do you have around that?
That's a great question. I'm curious, before I answer, do you have a sense of where you are and what is your lean in your relationship?
Absolutely, yeah. So like I've always been more of a giver, like always focus on the other person, like making sure they're happy, making sure their needs are met, and sometimes like putting my needs on the back burner because of that. And so yeah, like coming into this new relationship that I'm in now, it's like more about balancing that, like trying to make it a bit more equal with like expressing my needs and expressing what I need, as well as meeting the needs of my partner too. So yeah, I feel like way more balanced and way more grounded. And yeah, definitely have gained like a lot of awareness of like these dynamics as time's gone on. And as I've had different partners, it's like really felt like an evolution from person to person, as I was, yeah, kind of like going through these relationships and working out how to balance that conversation, the communication, and the dynamics between us.
Yeah. Okay. So that's a great example. I would say for anyone just like getting curious about this and their dynamics is first, as you pointed out, this awareness. Where do I, if there's a spectrum of maybe in the middle would be kind of neutral, forward would be I'm more like focused on the other person, or leaning back, where you might energetically or emotionally be in space. Like where's your natural set point? And from there, we can find what is balancing for each individual. So if you, as an example, it sounds like your tendency would be to lean a little bit more forward, then noticing, okay, what situations is that happening in? Where am I like losing myself, abandoning myself because I'm leaning too far forward, and starting to catch those moments, have those awarenesses. And then there are many tools that we can use, but start to find that neutral ground where you're not necessarily all the way back and it's just all about me all the way forward. And again, it's a spectrum. So it's not saying the middle point is the best point. There are different contexts where it matters where you stand. And there are certainly situations where there can be emergencies and things where you want to be all in, and we celebrate that you have that capacity to be all in and really supporting the other person, but not all the time. So it's having that flexibility and the awareness and the capacity to choose where you want to stand with your relationships.
So one thing you mentioned there that I just like had a thought about is like, do you think there's value in sometimes putting your needs on the back burner? Like sometimes when your partner is in need, right? Like for example, my partner 2 weeks ago, she was stung by a jellyfish and died on the beach, had to be like resuscitated. And then we were in hospital for a whole week. And so I was on like by her bedside for that whole week in hospital, which was like hard for me with my work schedule, like trying to work in the hospital. It made it a bit tricky, but it's like I was there for her, and so like I put my needs on the back burner a little bit to support her. And so do you think there's value in sometimes doing that as well? And how can that look, and how can that be done in a healthy way?
Beautiful. So that's an amazing example. In crisis, in an emergency, this is the human capacity that you can actually drop everything and, jump in front of a bus and save a child, or resuscitate your girlfriend because she's been stung by a jellyfish. Like these things are part of our inheritance and the beauty of being human. And this is where then, as I think what you're alluding to is that over time, though, if we're constantly in that fight or flight mode, it can be taxing on ourselves. And this is where like fatigue comes in, or, the helpers start to burn out. And you can see that with lots of different supportive roles in society. So it's important to also have, what would the tool be for that? Part of it is just awareness that we all need to take care of ourselves. And it's actually just, I would say part of it is a mindset that it's not about just giving and giving and giving, because at some point, obviously that's detrimental. So
Yeah.
creating a culture, allowing, giving yourself permission to actually pull back, because that is one way that you can be of better service to the people around you.
Absolutely. And another thing on that with, yeah, like giving and receiving, as like a balance. I'm curious on your perspective on like, because I've had a lot of partners in the past where they've been like full on the receiving mode, like they didn't really want to give anything. They didn't really want to like, meet my needs. And so like, do you think it's also your partner being on the same page with like balancing things out as well? Because I know some people definitely feel like they're giving so much to the relationship and not getting enough in return. And so like, do you think part of that is not just them and them not expressing their needs, but also their partner to an extent as well, and them not being on the same page?
Sure. Yeah. It could be many different kind of contexts, and knowing people's childhoods, what they received as love in the form of love from their parents. I like different kinds of things can impact the way that we relate to our romantic partners. I would say as a person like myself, I'll use myself as an example. I had expectations that my partner would kind of know what I wanted. And I almost had this fantasy of, he'll just remember that this is my favorite color, and he'll just spontaneously show up in the way and say the words that are the most impactful to me. And I would get disappointed, like, and frustrated and kind of resentful, because I was in my head just having this fantasy expectation that he would just show up perfectly without taking any responsibility for expressing my needs. And that was extremely vulnerable. It's like, hey, babe, actually, it would be so helpful if you could just get a little closer and like we could hold hands, or, it would just like, it would make me feel so loved to receive. I'm feeling a little tender today, and I need some affirmation if you wouldn't mind. And because there's a risk of him not being able to offer that, to show that I'm kind of needy, it brought up a lot of feelings, a lot of guilt, like, oh no, I should be independent, I shouldn't need these things. And so all of this is going on inside of me, as we'll just use this as one context example. So when I learned, oh no, this is like, what a gift, how empowering, how fun to be able to say what I want. And that just to be a gift, like I could see people around me lighting up when I shared that, and they could offer it to me, right? It could like complete these cycles. I'm going to go on a little tangent. Like the other day, there was carrot cake that I was just with friends, and it was the last bite. I was too full to eat the whole bite, but I wanted just the cream cheese filling on the top. So I said, if I asked for exactly what I want, I would just take the cream cheese on top and I would leave the cake. And no one had a problem with that. Like everyone was excited for me to get exactly what I wanted, and someone else ate the cake on the bottom. And it's a silly example, but it can bring so much joy to the people around you, and you might get what you want. Like you never know.
Yeah, instead of having a whole cake shoved in your face, you just get the cream cheese filling that you want.
Yeah, exactly.
It's a very good metaphor for like, understanding this stuff. It's like, everyone's going to assume the needs that you have, or the things that you want, but that's not always accurate, and it's not always right, and it doesn't always meet what you actually want. And so I think it's important that we get onto this level where we can communicate with the people around us on an authentic level, where we're expressing our needs and what we want, and not just assuming that people will know that. And so I think that's really powerful that you share that, and you share a little metaphor to explain it too. I think such an important thing. And would you say, so let's talk a little bit about like, not necessarily romantic partnerships, but more like friendships now. Would you say it's still like a similar kind of concept in terms of getting on that deeper level of communication with people and being able to be vulnerable and honest and open about your truth and your needs?
Yes, it's so exciting to have friends who are willing to share whatever they're feeling about you or with you or in their lives. Like I receive it as such an honor. not only when they share their own, things that are going on with their families and things that they're working on, but the next layer deep is like, how do you feel about me? How do you feel about our dynamic, our friendship, right? It doesn't always have to be in these romantic contexts, but how am I showing up as a friend? You can ask your friend the same questions you might ask your partner. What is it like for you to have this maybe we'll do it right now. How is it to have this conversation with me, Tom? What's it like?
It's incredible. It's incredible. It's like it flows very effortlessly, and there's a lot of alignment, a lot of like fun. The conversation feels like, yeah, effortless, really effortless.
Beautiful. Yeah, for me too. I can feel a little bit of nerves, like, okay, I want to have a nice conversation with you, and this total relaxation of you're picking up threads, you're giving stories. Like, this is such a fun give and receive dynamic for me. So of course, this is kind of a no-brainer, saying yes to having a conversation with you or doing a podcast like this. Yeah.
I love it. I love it. And it's so authentic too. It's like, I'm never going to show up with like this mask on. Like, I'm literally in some random room. Like, I didn't have some crazy fancy professional setup. Like, I don't care. It's like authentic, it's real. It's like, this is me. I'm showing up as my most authentic expression. And so I think that's why this conversation is so good to have with you, because you're all about authenticity. So, and I love to embody that, and I love communicating about this. So I think it's powerful to share this with people, because I know so many of my friends, back in Australia, who are just like stuck in this kind of bubble, and there's a lot of like fakeness, and everyone's wearing a mask and not showing up as themselves or expressing themselves. And in these friendships, they're just putting on this mask, and what that looks like is it breeds a lot of like gossip and drama and like backstabbing and like talking behind people's back, and all of these kind of things start to manifest, and there's a lot of like, yeah, like literally just people complaining or being the victim and like bitching about other people. And it's not a nice way to live, So I'd love to bring more awareness to this kind of topic to people, because I think it's so powerful. And the work that you're doing with authenticity coaching is like something that's really, really needed in the world right now. It's such a powerful topic. And I think content like this that we're creating now and just sharing like little things around this, it can make such an impact to people's lives. It's just, if people can pick up one thing and then start communicating on a deeper level with a partner or a friend or a family member even, and like that changes the dynamic in some way, like this can create such a ripple effect, because if we're showing up and having these beautiful relationships that are not dragging us down, but they're actually serving us, then we can get to this like new level of awareness where we can, start to impact other people because our needs are being met, So yeah, I'd love to.
Yes. I agree wholeheartedly, Tom. We're on the same team. I love it.
Exactly. So like, how does that impact look for you? Like, what mission would you say that you're on with this coaching and what you're doing? And like, how are you trying to change people and the world, I guess? Like, what does that look like for you?
In one word, it's freedom. That's it. That's all I really probably have ever really, really cared about. Yeah, it's freedom. And there are many ways to experience that. What you were sharing, freedom. Yes, Tom. Okay. I just keep enjoying. And as I get to know you more and more, I just get to love you more and more. And this is part of it. It's like we can appreciate people on so many different levels. And part of this is my own journey of, and as you were speaking, this is what was coming up, is I can put up a mask and it's really beautiful and perfect. And it might be something that I think that you like and want. But, and I heard this from somewhere else. It's not my analogy. I'll give credit to whoever that person is. Thank you. So if there's a mask, then you're appreciating my mask. It's like almost this third entity. So all of my praise, all of our relationships, all of our conversations are going towards this other part of me. And inside the authentic or true me is actually getting more and more lonely. Like I have to continue to feed this perception of who I am and slowly feel like, oh, I'm an imposter and I'm unlovable. And like some of these deeper wounds can come out that, like, do you even know me? And do I even know you? And that's like, what a lonely place to be. I can feel that in myself in some spaces. And and so the experience of putting down the mask, showing this awkward, messy version of myself, and then being loved for that, even through and through, there's like nothing more fulfilling, enlivening, sweet, like human than to really be loved for who you are and to vulnerably show that. So that's what I want to do and I want to see. And there's something that excites me when people pull their masks down and I get like, wow, actually who you are underneath is just so much more interesting and complex. And it's like, I enjoy that so much. So it's, in some ways it's selfish and it's liberating. So we get everything that we want.
Exactly. I love that, like how the way you explained it with like the mask being like a third entity that you're feeding so much of your energy, your time, your like effort to this, like this thing to maintain this perfect persona, you know? And it's funny, like when I first started traveling, I was in a bit of a crisis and I actually ended up making an alter ego because I wanted to try and run away from who I was. And so I had this like alter ego that I created. And like you said, just feeding this mask, like putting this mask on, and it felt so lonely. Every time I talked to someone or connect with someone, it felt lonely because I wasn't being me. I was being this fake character. It didn't feel real. It didn't feel authentic. It felt like this fake world I was living in. And it's crazy, like how much energy and time people feed to this mask instead of just letting it go, just drop it. Because this mask is so heavy. It's so heavy. And for so many people, this heaviness is what leads you to anxiety, to depression, to stress, to pressure, to all of these emotions that are weighing you down, this heaviness. It's like this mask is so heavy. So yeah, I don't know if that makes sense or where I explained it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with what you're saying. This weight of the mask, right? Sometimes I don't even realize that I've been holding my mask for such a long time until I actually set it down. And only in the setting down of it is the weight actually felt. So I'll also bring a little twist to this, which I think because of who you are and the nuance of your kind of audience, that there is and can be a helpful stage of trying on lots of different masks, because there is then this practice of like trying something on. How does this feel? Take it off, try something else on, put it on. How does this feel? And in that, it's almost like going to the gym. You're lifting your weights of unpacking this identity, right? Who you are, and really feeling into what is true, what feels authentic, and knowing I can move through all of these identities. There's no right or wrong way. It allows for some level of freedom that sometimes it's almost like putting on a different color dress. Like today I want to be green dress, tomorrow I want a pink dress. So I can put on these multiple identities, and it doesn't have to be so attached. I don't have to so strongly identify with it. That can also be an interesting stage of experiencing your humanity as well.
Interesting. I've never really thought about it like that. That makes so much sense because it's like you're just playing, you know? You're being creative force in this world where you're just playing, like for no intention or no reason. It's just other than to play and to have fun and to enjoy the human experience. So I really like that. How can people do that? What does that kind of look like in action? Is there any like advice you have around that?
Yeah. Okay. So for me, I had never done a podcast. This is my second podcast ever. And it is somewhat of an identity I have to put on. I am someone who does podcasts. So let's try that on. Who do I become? What happens when I get to play this role, put on, maybe mask isn't the right word in this situation, but can I try on being multiple versions of me and playing? That's the perfect word. Can I play this? Is this a game I want to play? And I'm allowed to. There's nothing stopping me. And maybe it's not. And then I'll put this game down and I'll try on another game. Yeah. So I would say in anywhere in your career or your relationships, like there's no barrier to, you can be friends with anybody. You can date anybody. You can become a writer, an artist, a painter, a dancer, a singer. Like just start doing it, try it on and see how it feels and then decide.
And that fits so perfectly into what this whole podcast is about, which is like freedom. It's like the freedom in all areas of your life, like giving yourself permission. That's how I look at freedom. It's like giving yourself permission to like live exactly as you wish and as you want to. So it's like, yeah, removing all of the conditioning and the fears and like the traumas that are holding you back from living in true freedom and living in true authenticity, right? Because it's like expression at the end of the day. Like freedom is an expression of you. And so it's like yeah, like deciding how you want to show up and having the freedom to show up as that, not feeling restricted. So like, yeah, I feel like a lot of people have these restrictions and this baggage that they hold on to. They tell themselves these stories of like, no, I can't be this. And, I can't jump on a podcast. Like I've never done a podcast, and there's these whole stories and these patterns that start coming up. So like for you, let's use the podcast example. How did you break through that? Maybe some of the fears and the insecurities maybe you felt. I'm not sure if you did, but maybe you had some of these things come up for you when jumping on this first podcast. Like how was that experience for you and how did you face those things?
Yes, great question. I feel excited just listening to the question. I'm going to give maybe an unusual answer, which is don't let go of the fear. For me, at least, it's actually my greatest life hack is to allow the fear to be there, to be welcome. So I do a lot of things very scared. Like even before this, I was like, oh, my stomach, I'm nervous, I'm sweating. And it's not all of me, right? That's part of my experience, but it's not a problem. It's okay. You're allowed to be here, fear. You're allowed to be here, embarrassment or shyness. And let's also recognize there are other feelings here. I'm excited. I get to hang out with my friend Tom. I get to express myself. I get to be surprised by what I say. I might stumble and be messy and say lots of ums, likes, and be really awkward. So, but all of that is okay. So the more that I'm willing to bring in, like almost bring these things in closer to me and integrate them and allow them, like the more rich my human experience is and the more free I feel. It's a process of, it's the opposite of letting go for me. It's the like, come closer, like I love you and you get to be here, and all of us, like every part of me is welcome in this space no matter what, all the time, as much as I possibly can. That's my greatest mission in life right now.
That's like embracing the full human spectrum of existence, It's like the happiness, the sadness, the anger, the fear, the everything, like embrace it all, Like feel it all. Don't try and push it away or suppress anything. It's like feel everything and work through it. I think it's so powerful. So powerful. And also like I want to add as well, like to me, like having this conversation with you, like it seems like you've been on like 100, 200, 300 podcasts, like you speak so naturally and so like so well spoken. So I want to like commend you for that because it's really a skill set that a lot of people take so long to build up. And like this is only your second podcast and you're already speaking so well on these podcasts. So yeah, it's really, really good.
Wow, that means a lot. Thank you so much for that compliment.
No, all good. I hope you feel that because it's truth. So yeah, is there anything else you want to add? Maybe you want to add any like last little pieces of like advice or maybe some steps that people can take in the right direction? Is there any advice you have in terms of like someone watching this, maybe they want to start showing up more authentically in their relationships? Like what is one step that you can give to people or one little piece of advice that you can give to people for them to start making a change?
Okay. The one thing I would say, I'll say there are probably many things. And I noticed the part of me that's like, wait, what's the best thing that I can say? So I'm quieting that and I'm welcoming it. So let me just bring you a little bit into my process. The word desire is showing up in my mind. So I'll just run with that idea. So my advice would be to start to pay attention to what you want and what your preferences are. And from that space, allow yourself to really feel like the beauty of that. And it could be as simple as, I have hunger, I have desire to move in this direction. It could be, Yeah, I'm trying to think of some other way to honor this. Or now I'm kind of like getting bored with that concept. So let me see if I can access something else. Desires are important, but if there's one thing that I would say that's really important, oh, okay, this feels more alive for me. It's feel your feelings without needing to do anything. That's probably the first place I would recommend anyone on this journey start. That in and of itself can change everything. So a lot of times emotions are giving us really valuable information. And it's beautiful to feel anger, to feel, oh, wow, there's something, my boundaries are being crossed here, right? There can be a lot of detailed nuance in emotion that we might not have realized without that signal. So it's such a beautiful language to be fluent in. But it starts with actually feeling it. So if you allow yourself to feel it in your body, like allow it to be an embodied experience. Wow, like we'll use anger as the example. Like I feel my hands wanting to clench and they're getting kind of clammy and my jaw's getting tight and my thoughts are racing in terms of like, oh, I need to do something. I need to act. I need to move. There's heat in my body, my belly, right? Whatever it is for you, learn, understand, get to know your emotional landscape from an embodied perspective, because the quicker you are to understand what's happening, then the easier it will be to make decisions. And it won't be impulsive. It won't be reactive. It will be from a place of choosing. And if you can choose how to act in every moment with any person that you're with based on your deepest truth and integrating all parts of you, that is an unstoppable characteristic. That is a skill set that no matter what happens in your life, like, you know that you can handle any situation. There's complete freedom in being able to do that. So I pray everyone gets to know themselves on that level and experience that level of freedom. It's such a beautiful thing to
I love
do.
that. And it starts with exploring. And it's funny. I was like watching you go through this process like just now, you're like working out how to answer the question. You're like, okay, I'll start with the answer desire. But then you like change it, you're like really thinking and like exploring, allowing yourself to explore these different answers and like what's gonna like be the most powerful thing for me to say. And like I think, yeah, it's like beautiful to be able to explore yourself, and these thoughts and these emotions, like you say. So I think that's so powerful. So with that, we'll wrap things up. Where can people find you if they want to connect with you?
Please find me on Instagram. I'm at the Lisa Flynn, and I would be so happy. Send me a DM. I love chatting. Share with me what's really alive for you these days, how your relationships are going. I'd be really curious to hear. So yeah, reach out. I have a one-on-one program. I love to work with people one-on-one. In particular, if you're in a relationship, a lot of times people think that it has to be both people. You both have to go in and do all of this work together. And there's truth to that. For me, there is so much power in even one person starting to develop these skills, starting to get to know themselves. Like I shared earlier, it made such a big difference in my marriage to feel like I can lead in this, and not just for my marriage, but for myself. And that has had such a ripple effect on me. So I love to work one-on-one with people for in any capacity that they want to explore their deeper, authentic connections.
I love it. I love it. Thank you so much, Lisa, for jumping on. This has been such a beautiful, impactful, powerful conversation. And I hope people get some value from this. So yeah, thank you so much for jumping on.
Thank you, Tom. And I want to credit you for opening up such an easy, relaxed, authentic space to have a conversation in, for you sharing your experience, your heart, your ideas. It's a real testament. I think this podcast is going to be really amazing, and I wish you so much success. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Lisa. That means a lot.